Welcome back to the virtual court where you are the judge. Hope and heartbreak. After my son's death, relatives took my grandchildren, but soon dropped them off at CPS once they collected the insurance money. Finally, I thought I could get my grandchildren. I was living in the Caribbean, so CPS needed to do a compact, which means have the island that I live on to ensure safety for my grandchildren. But the island that I live on didn't have a formal child welfare system. CPS asked me to come back to the U.S. for 6 months. I explained that I couldn't afford to pay rent in 2 countries because, of course, if I was going to stay there for 6 months, I'd have to pay rent in America and keep the house in the Caribbean and pay rent there too, and car insurance in both places, and all the bills. You still have to pay if you leave. They offered to pay rental fees, buy furniture, and they gave me a letter to collect my son's benefits. It seemed too good to be true, and it was. I agreed to come back to the U.S., but before I could sign the lease, the worker dropped a bombshell. She said that the judge had ruled against me having custody, and that the only thing I could do was come to a mediation hearing to see if the foster parent was willing to let me see my grandchildren. I was devastated. I gave her check back for the rent and her vouchers back for the furniture, and I got on the first plane back to the Caribbean, and I pulled my coat over my head and I cried all the way home. But this wasn't the end. I later discovered a shocking truth. It was all a lie. The worker had forged the court order favoring a foster parent who wanted to adopt my children. She was a foster parent and a worker. She worked at the agency, which is against the law. I mean, this lady went online and pulled up everybody in my family and started to make attacks toward them. It was terrible. This practice, I didn't even know the name for it until it happened to me. But this practice is called unlawful internal diversion. And it's when they take a case, like they try to go back 19 years and say, hey, you can't have your grandchildren because of this. That's bull. I didn't even live in the same country as my son. So how would he be a threat to my grandchildren? If there has been sex abuse in the home, the primary thing that the social worker is supposed to assess is, will the non-offending parent protect the child? Well, there was no way that they could say, I didn't protect my child, because I was at every part of that investigation as a help and not a hindrance. And I wasn't in denial about what happened. So this is why they never used my son's most current case, because they couldn't. So they reverted back to the 11-year-old case. Unlawful internal diversion is when child welfare employees manipulate the system to place children with people they prefer, often other employees, family members, or friends. How can you trust a system where such deception is possible? How many other families have been torn apart by similar unlawful practices? Follow, like, and share to find out how we fought back against this injustice.
Who say the system is not only broken but corrupt and using its power and influence to break families apart.
With a village of family members surrounding them.
I'm sorry. It's okay. It's so much.
Tanai and Rodney Williams are, for the first time publicly, sharing what they describe no loving parent should ever have to.
They called us abusers, and they just took us from us.
Detailing first in a lawsuit and now to us why they say the system created to protect families not only failed them,
I got you talking, Tom,
but distorted the truth to steal their daughter away. The The Williams are among 4 Florida families now suing the governor and leaders of Florida's Department of Children and Families and other state foster care organizations, accusing the organizations of fabricating evidence, hiding and withholding key information, and ignoring state and federal family laws so they could snatch children from their biological families and then adopt them out to system-connected strangers.
They call it unlawful internal diversion, where socials workers steal children, a perversion, betraying families they're supposed to help, collecting checks from the state, a deceptive wealth. CPS took away my son's name, erased his existence, stripping his heritage with no resistance. But his spirit lives on deep within our hearts. No matter what they took, his memory won't depart. How is this different from days of old, where black families were separated, their hearts left cold? They continue to expand while our hearts bleed, tearing families apart with no need.
Objection. Relevance.
Overruled.
The virtual jury, my companions in this quest.